All right, and we are back in Chapter 8. This is the third video for Chapter 8, and we're here on this section, the third choice. What is your asset allocation? You really want to pay attention to this. This is very important for your long-term success in investing. Investment portfolio returns are influenced more by the percentage of cash, bonds, and stocks you include in your investment income engine than by timing or security selection. In this case, timing is deciding when to put your money into an investment, and security selection is deciding which individual stocks or bonds to include in your investment portfolio. Essentially, over a long period, your average return will be determined by what asset classes you choose rather than when you decide to invest or which individual securities you choose within those asset classes. For example, if you choose the asset class of stocks, that decision is more important than the day you invest your money in stocks and more important than the individual stocks you choose, as long as you have a diversified portfolio. Why? Assuming you consistently contribute to your investment income engine, right? And that's what we want, right? Your monthly contributions. Any timing advantage will be eliminated in the long run because the market fluctuates. You'll buy some shares at a higher price, some at a lower price, which will end up being an average price. So there's no real advantage. Next, assuming you practice diversification, you'll have many different individual stocks in your investment portfolio. Each stock will perform differently. Some will be leaders, whereas others will be laggards. The investment portfolio performance will combine all the positive and negative returns, leaving you with an average return. Thus, the overall average return will reflect the performance of the broader asset class rather than the impact of any one security. What matters the most is your asset allocation decision, or in other words, the percentage of stocks, bonds, and cash you have in your portfolio. Why? Over the long run, and depending on the time period studied, diversified stock portfolios average between 8 to 12%, bonds between 4 and 6%, and cash even less. For example, if you invest 100% in stocks, you can expect 8% conservatively. And if you invest 100% in bonds, you can expect 4%. The 4% difference, right, the difference between 8 and 4, over time makes a big impact in accumulating wealth. So for average returns over the long run, the most important decision you make is not what day, week, or month to invest your money or which individual securities to include in a diversified portfolio, but how much money you allocate to specific assets. Now this illustration here just shows us average asset returns over 1 and 15-year periods with return variability measured using plus or minus 1 standard deviation from 1928 to 2023. So we have the returns over here on the y-axis, and so it's like negative 0.05 all the way up to 30% roughly, and then we have the different asset classes, including inflation. Inflation we're representing by this dotted line right here, okay, the average inflation rate. But what we want to look at is just the difference real quickly between cash, right, the average return, and then we can see that bonds are a little bit more, and then the average return for stocks is even higher. Now we'll talk more about the variability, but we can see that for stocks, over any 1 year period, you can see that the variability, it could be up 30% or down quite a bit below, returning a negative number. But as time goes on, we have this volatility compression, and so the range of returns over these 15-year periods that we're looking at are a lot smaller, and so they're closer to the average. Okay, but we'll talk more about that soon. So now that you understand the importance of asset allocation, let's understand how average returns work. Picking only winning stocks for your investment portfolio would be fabulous, but it's impractical because you can't know the winners from the losers ahead of time. That's why you diversify across many different stocks. In investing, diversifying leads to average returns. There's no other way around it. If you choose to eliminate, for example, the risk of a company going out of business, you must add enough companies to ensure that no single company's results can cause catastrophic losses to your investment income engine. The trade-off is average returns. But average returns are not necessarily good or bad. They're just average. Average is what you have to work with to eliminate more serious risks. How would you feel if I told you that there's an investment that could double your money over the next year, but you could also lose all of it? That uncertainty would make most people uncomfortable. Having a well-diversified portfolio of stocks reduces the risk of losing everything, but it also reduces your potential returns. There is a parallel between your personal income engine and the assets you put into your investment income engine. Your personal income engine decision is critical because the more you earn, the more you can invest. Similarly, your asset allocation decision between cash, bonds, and stocks is important because cash earns less than bonds over the long run, and bonds earn less than stocks. If you choose to invest in a bond fund, your investment will grow slower than an equivalent investment in a stock fund over the long run. There is no getting around this fact. The more risk, the higher the return. In the long run, no matter what you do, bonds have less risk than stocks and will therefore always have lower returns. That is why the decision between cash, bonds, and stocks greatly influences an investment portfolio's return. For example, as stated previously, if you know that the long-term return for stocks is 8% and the long-term return for bonds is 4%, and you allocate 100% of your money to stocks, you can expect an 8% long-term return. If another person allocates 100% of their money to bonds, they can expect a 4% long-term return. The person who invests in bonds cannot expect an 8% long-term return. It's not possible. There might be a year or two when bonds outperform stocks, but in the long run, stocks have always outperformed bonds. Why would it be any different now? All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and read this last section, and then we'll stop the video. Investment contribution sources. The aim is to contribute a minimum of 15% to 20% of your annual before tax income into your investment income engine. Your investment income engine may be a combination of various investment accounts, so it doesn't have to just be one. For example, when you participate in a retirement plan at work, the employee and employer contributions count toward your total annual goal. You and your spouse may each have an individual retirement arrangement, an IRA, and those contributions also count. You may also have mutual funds held in a single account that you contribute to after you've maxed out your retirement account. All of those accounts are part of your investment income engine. Any contribution to those accounts by yourself or your employer counts toward your minimum cumulative contribution goal of 15% to 20% of your before tax income. For example, suppose you contribute 5% of your before tax income to your employer-sponsored retirement plan, and your employer matches that. In that case, the total contribution is 10%. If you aim to contribute 15% annually, you will have 5% left to contribute to meet your goal. As mentioned, this additional 5% of your before tax income could be contributed to any other type of investment, retirement, or savings account. However, it is typically recommended to make the maximum contribution to your tax-advantaged accounts before contributing to taxable accounts. Okay, so we'll stop there and we'll pick up for our fourth part of Chapter 8, Investing, in just a moment. Thanks for being here with me.